This is not a review video of the ECOFLOW Delta 2. Hi, Odyssey Camper here. Today I want to talk about the backup battery system I use at my house to back up my freezers. Now, that has nothing to do with the usual subject of this channel, which is minivan camping, but it's what I use when I'm away so my wife can run things when we have a power outage. And it's actually a pretty good self-contained system if you don't want to deal with building your own system. You just want to get good backup power in a van or a small RV, or maybe you have a tiny home and you want to power that, or a camping cabin, hunting cabin, anything, any place where 120 volt small output, 1800 watts would solve your problems. So the unit I'm using is an ECOFLOW Delta 2. I'm not going to do a review on the ECOFLOW Delta 2. If you go over to Will Prose's solar channel, he'll have a review on it. He does a much better job of going through everything, testing all that. There's enough of those videos out there. What I want to talk about is how I run mine indefinitely and how I can continue to run it, whether there's solar or the battery's dead, power hasn't come back on, I need some long-term solution. So just to give you some basic specs, this unit is a battery, and it also has a built-in inverter and a charger, solar charge converter also. And so it can put out 1800 watts, and it can also handle, that's steady state, it can handle a higher surge. It's a pure sine inverter, so you can run anything off of it that you would normally run with AC. It can recharge off of AC at about 1000 watts. So you can just figure, okay, a little more than an hour. It's a lithium battery, so the charging profile, hour and a half or so, you can recharge this when the power comes back on. Or if you have another means of generating AC power, you can recharge it in about the same amount of time. For example, in my van, I've got 1000 watts of AC output that can run off of my battery backup and also off of solar. So I've got a couple of different ways that I can recharge this, but I'm going to show you, if you don't have a van built, how you could do it from your house. So the first thing I'll give you is quick specs. Like I mentioned, 1800 watt output, can recharge at 1000 watts. However, DC charging is limited to off of solar about 15 amps. And off of 12 volts, it's limited to about 8 amps. We'll get into that a little bit more. So you can recharge this off of, say, your vehicle. You could plug it into a 12 volt charger. You could run it, plug it into the battery. You can run it off of solar. So the way I do it around my house is I have solar, I can charge this. Its charging off of solar is limited to about 500 watts. So now it's going to take a couple hours, assuming you have full power off your solar. But it can do up to 60 volts. And that's nice because higher voltage system, you can run smaller conductors. You're not running as much current. And the current limitations of this, if you want faster charging, you're going to have to up the voltage. We'll get into that a little later. If I'm starting to lose you, I'm not going to make this too technical. It's just that I want to give you some upfront conditions and expectations before we get into it. All right, so I said I use this as my home backup system. Well, I have a couple of ways to back up my house. This is kind of my home backup that's easy for my wife to run if I'm away. She doesn't have to haul out a 200-pound generator or 300-pound generator, pull start that thing, or deal with a dead battery if it's an electric start. She can just come out, hit the buttons, plug in the freezers. She's good to go for a moment. Freezers don't, the deep freezers I'm referring to, they don't have to be run constantly. They can run 4 hours on, 4 hours off, and keep everything frozen. You're not going to have to plug them in immediately. This can also run the entertainment center. So it's just, you want to run a light, you want to run, your TV, your Wi-Fi. Now, I actually use a separate system for the Wi-Fi and internet at the house, and it's also an EcoFlow. It's a River Max, I believe, and I'll show you that on the app later on. But it's meant to be a simple to run, easy to use system. Now, it has some nice built-in features. It has a USB charger, a couple of different charging levels out of the front, in addition to the AC. And it also has a 12-volt socket so you can plug in AC appliances. I have, as I showed in a previous video, cooking equipment all designed to run off of my smaller inverter in the van. Well, this can definitely run it. With this, I can run an induction hot plate. I can run a coffee pot. I can run anything to make hot water. It's basically the same limitations you would have in a household outlet circuit. So you're not limited by a small inverter. Okay, enough about these units. How do I run them indefinitely? Well, the first thing I would do is just run off of the battery backup. The EcoFlow has 1,000 watt hours, and then this battery that goes with it has 1,000 watt hours. I probably, unless these come way down in price, would not buy another one of these backup batteries. They work great. They integrate nicely with the app. EcoFlow has an excellent app. But if you already have batteries around the house, or you want to purchase your own battery, you basically don't need to use this. You can do it a different way, which I'll show you. So primary would be the backup battery that goes with it. Now, secondary would be solar. So my solar array, 600 watts, can plug into the back of this, charge it at 500 watts. Or I can charge it off of the van if the van's at home at the time. So now let's get into a longer term solution. So let's say it's been raining for 3 days and you haven't had much solar, or you live in Michigan like I do and it's cloudy all the time. Well, now you can get into a generator to charge the battery bank. Now you may say, why not just use a generator? And you obviously can do that. The thing about a generator is it's running all the time, whether or not you're using the gasoline that you're burning or the fuel that you're burning. So it's not the most efficient way. If you can use 100% of the power from the generator to recharge a battery, then run the battery down, then recharge with the generator, the fuel will last longer. You won't be running your generator as many hours. And rather than trying to haul a generator around and run extension cables or wire into your house, you can just bring the unit. These are very lightweight. Pick them up with one hand if you want, but 2 hands is easy. I think it's 27 pounds. You can carry it anywhere in the house you need it. So for example, your refrigerator is now shut down, your freezers are shut down, you want to make coffee. So you can bring this into the kitchen, you can plug it into the refrigerator, make your coffee, get the food cold in the fridge again, then bring it back out, run the freezers, maybe later on go watch a movie. So it's portable, you can drag it around the house. The power output, I think, would be sufficient, especially with a backup battery, for most van uses or small RVs, like a pop-up or something. When you start to get into anything larger than a small trailer, you're probably going to have more power demands and you're going to want to live closer to how you live in a house, and you'd want a little more power. Usually when you get into fifth wheel size and Class A, Class C even, you have all that stuff already built in. So this is more for someone that might have an A-frame, or what do they call them, an A-liner, and they need small power output for that. So beyond solar, I've gone to a cloudy day. Now I'm going to run my generator. So generator sizing. This is where the EcoFlow has a nice feature, which I'll show you on the app. So with the EcoFlow app, you can actually set the amount of current that it charges at through AC. And why this is important is, if I have a big generator, I can run maximum current output with my big motor, big heavy generator. That's not really a concern. But when you have a smaller generator, now it's nice to be able to limit the current so that you can deal with the power requirements and the power output of the small generator. So what I use is, brand's not important for now, just an off-brand 900 watt generator. I've had this thing for years. I've used it when the sump pump needed to run. Another use for these, if you live in an area where your basement will flood if you don't run the sump pump. It runs off propane. So it runs off of the camping cylinders that you probably already have, And if it's a longer term situation and you need to run that for days on end or whatnot, now you can grab one of these adapters and you can run the system off of a larger propane tank, or you could even run it off of a pig if you've got one in your yard already. So if you don't know what I mean by a pig, then you don't have one, so don't worry about it. So this solar unit can be powered by the generator, and the problem is this generator can only put out 900 watts peak and 700 watts continuous. It is an inverter generator, and this is a super efficient generator, but not enough to run full bore and recharge this in an hour. It would take 3 or 4 hours, or about what that propane cylinder holds, to recharge it. The nice thing is it's light. I'm not that strong, but I lifted it off the table. So it's easy to move around. It's small, so you can put it in your trailer, and you only need to run it when you don't have solar available or when it's time to recharge the batteries. Why is that important? Well, if you're camping around other people, don't be that guy or that girl that's running their generator all night. Charge up your battery bank and then run your generator during the daytime. But the other thing is, when you do run these, the propane generators are quiet. The small ones are very quiet. So this, I could probably run this video talk while this is running. It's that quiet, so you're not gonna disturb people as much when you are doing your charging, and it also doesn't put out the fumes that a gasoline generator puts out. So the way to connect this to recharge the EcoFlow is pretty simple. In the front of the generator is a 120 volt output, and that goes into the back of the EcoFlow at the top. There's a charging input for 120 volts. If you have a larger generator, great. But if you want to buy a small one that's portable, easy to pack, easy to move around, you're only going to use it occasionally, there are a number of these. They're about currently $300 to $500. I bought this back in, I want to say it was 2010, so that's why the brand's not important. That's probably not even made anymore. But these generators at the time when they went on sale were like $400. So they've actually come down in price. And that's, I guess, the one good thing about Chinese manufacturing. And even if you buy a name brand, it is most likely like a 90% chance that it's made in China. So don't worry about that. That's just the way it is. By Briggs & Stratton, it's not made in the US anymore. By most of your smaller Kohlers, not made here. So anyway, so don't give me grief about the Chinese generator. That's all that's out there anymore. All right, so you plug it in and fire it up, power up the EcoFlow, go inside, check your app and see what the charging state is, and just let it run. Of course, you want to run any generator outside and away from an open window or enclosed space. Propane generators are much more efficient, but if the thing goes out of tune or whatnot, it could still asphyxiate you. So especially if you're in a vehicle. So make sure it's far enough away. But the nice thing is you can still leave your appliances plugged into the EcoFlow, and it'll do a pass-through while it's charging. So you could run your generator at full capacity, so it's charging the EcoFlow quickly and also running everything else you have plugged into the EcoFlow. So beyond the propane generator, the next thing I can do is, if I have an extra battery around, I can charge off of a 12-volt battery. Now this battery came out of my van. It used to be my main system. It's a gel lead acid battery. Thing weighs like 70 pounds. I don't like to move it around, so I leave it on the shelf. And then what I do is I plug in this XT60 connector into the battery. Go ahead and do this. And then if we have a power outage that's long enough to run down the EcoPower, my wife can simply just plug this into the solar battery backup system and the solar input, and now that battery will begin charging the EcoFlow. Now, so my wife can remember all that. I don't expect her to remember what to plug in where, so I made her this little laminated cheat sheet. So if you're going to do this for a home backup system while you're traveling and your wife's not technically inclined, or your husband's not technically inclined, I shouldn't be sexist there, make them a little laminated instruction manual on how to run everything while you're gone. Hang that near your battery backup or your generator or whatnot. And I like to do these for the whole house. I'm not normally that organized, but subsystems like gas logs and things like that, I want my wife to be able to, run those if she can't remember how to relight them or whatnot while I'm gone, because I do leave for extended trips. One thing I should say about the battery is that just plugging the battery in is going to limit you to about 8 amps off of the battery, and that's a limitation of the EcoFlow. That'll give you roughly 100 watts of charging power. So until that battery goes dead or drops down to a voltage where it's no longer acceptable for the built-in MPPT solar charger, it'll continue to charge the EcoFlow. 12 volts at 8 amps is going to give you about 100 watts of charging. So it's going to take a while to recharge. The reason the EcoFlow limits you to a certain amount of current out of a battery is because it assumes that you're charging off of a 12 volt lighter. It doesn't want to pull too much current and blow your fuse in your 12 volt lighter. There is a way around this, and the first step around it is to use a different cable. So if I take my double XT60 and I use an XT60i specialized connector, this connector has a little metal piece in the middle of it, which will tell the ECOFLOW Delta, hey, I'm charging off of solar now. And it'll allow it to pull more current from the supply. So that'll get you up to about 180 watts of charging just by using this cable. Now I made this one, but you can buy them, and I'll put Amazon links down below so you can find them. But what I do is plug this into the battery, standard XT60, and then bring it over to the solar input, plug it in, and now I can charge up to 15 amps. So now I'm going to get more power, or power faster, out of the battery, charging at a higher current. But you're still limited by that upper limit of 15 amps on everything with the EcoFlow Delta. So to get around this problem, you can use one of these. This is a voltage converter. And what it does is it steps up a voltage. So it's going to take the 12 volt from the battery, it's going to step it up to 24 volts in this case, and then charge at a higher voltage. Well, how does that get more power? And remember, your current times your voltage. Well, I can't raise the current because this is limited mainly because of the conductor size that you would need to run a higher current. But this is limited to 15 amps. So if I step up the voltage, now I can get more power in the same amount of time. So this particular one is rated at 240 watts, and it's a 24 volt, 10 amp output. And I bought this for demo because it's cheap. There are different ones available. There's a Victron unit available that's very good, but Victron you're going to pay probably 150 bucks. I think this was $20. And I've run it for probably 10 hours now. I ran it overnight. It gets up to about 150 degrees Fahrenheit when it's running full bore. So just be aware they do get warm, so you probably don't want to set it on the unit. You can put it on a plate if you want to keep it cooler, or bolt it onto a metal rack or something, just to give airflow and also some extra heat dissipation. But there's no reason you have to stop at 24 volts. You could go to a 48 volt unit, and now you're doubling what's going into it. So with this, I can get up to about 250 constant watts. But what I noticed is when you first plug it in, for the first half hour or so, it runs at about 280 watts. And then once it warms up, it cuts the current down a little bit and leaves you at the rated 240 watts. So by plugging this in here, and get my 12 volts in, still using my XT cable, XT60i cable, the orange one, and I plug this in. So now I'm going to charge at 24 volts in the same current. So now I'm getting up, in this case, to 240 watts of charging. So with this setup, you can recharge faster. Twice as fast or 2.5 times as fast as you can with just the 12 volt cable off of a battery. Well, what happens when that battery goes dead? Well, you can disconnect it. You could charge it with a pair of jumper cables off your vehicle. That's not the way I do it, but you could. I can charge it off on my van. I can plug in the standard battery charger and plug it off at 120 volts. So maybe I bring that battery to a friend's house, plug in my charger, if he still has power, and then recharge the battery, bring it back home when I'm done. It gives me more options. Would I recommend somebody set up their system this way? Well, I already had the battery, so it made sense for me. And you can buy the battery backup that comes with, or that's designed to run with the EcoFlow, and it'll show up on the app, and the battery will automatically switch over and charge the EcoFlow. Or you could just buy a cheaper battery. I think these extra batteries are like right now $500 or something, and I can buy a 100 amp hour lithium battery for $300. And so I could just use that as the battery backup, but it won't automatically recharge the battery like this will. So again, simplicity. I wanted something that my wife could plug and play. And so having the extra battery made some sense. And then if that runs down, all she needs to do is plug in the backup battery, and that'll run even longer. And then in the daytime, she would unplug this into a solar charger and plug the solar panels into here to recharge the EcoFlow. So what am I telling you? Well, you've got a couple options. This unit, because you can adjust the power it charges at, you can use a smaller generator. And with the smaller generator, you can run indefinitely. With solar, as long as you have solar, you can run indefinitely. And then if you have extra batteries laying around that you're not doing anything with, or you want to add an extra battery bank, 5-6 batteries, to run a lot longer without having to start your generator, you could do that. So if I'm starting off in a small camper, I might buy this unit, and then over time, maybe I'll add a second battery if I need it, or I'll use the house battery it came with as a backup, charge it the way I normally would, and then use it as a backup to the system. I'd have my solar panels plugged in the whole time, and then maybe bring a generator along with me so that if I'm out boondocking and it's raining for a week, I have a way to recharge the EcoFlow. So hopefully this is helpful to whoever watches this video. Gives you some ideas. I mean, all my videos are made to generate ideas. I want you to think about it and go, well, that's great, but I could do this, and that's kind of the point. I just wanted to show you what I do. Again, this is my home system. This isn't my van system. If I'm home and this happens, well, recharging this is easy because I can plug solar into that, but the van can run indefinitely. It's got solar on top, but if there's no solar available, I can start the van and recharge the batteries off of that. Or I could just plug in and immediately double the capacity I have for the batteries, just using the batteries in the van that are already charged. So that gives me a lot more options. Your needs and your availability of things might be different. If you are an apartment dweller, you live in an apartment building, you're watching this in a city or something, you have very little control over your power system. And if the whole place goes down, they're not going to let you run a generator and backfeed or plug in. You shouldn't backfeed, but that said, if you know what you're doing, you probably won't kill yourself. You won't have any control over being able to wire an outside generator hookup. And then if you have a generator in an apartment complex, someone's probably going to steal it anyway. So these EcoFlows are really nice to have. I think everybody should have one of these if they can afford something like it. It doesn't have to be EcoFlow brand, but I will close by saying I like these units because the app that goes with them works flawlessly. It automatically updates. I can check the status from anywhere as long as there's Wi-Fi, and the other river unit is running my Wi-Fi system. So as long as the main distribution hubs are not down, I still have internet. So if I'm out on the road and my wife says, it's not running right, or it's not recharging, I can go in and I can look at the status of it from anywhere in the world. I travel a lot in the van and also for business. So I like that feature. The app and the support. EcoFlow is always developing new systems. The anchor systems I've heard good things about. I'd probably, for a home backup system, I've stayed away from the cheaper ones beginning with the J. I wouldn't want to bet everything on those, but some people have had good luck with them. So I'm not saying that the EcoFlow is the only way you can do this. Just if you get one that has an adjustable charging current, that opens the door for being able to run these small generators to recharge them, small solar, a battery. You get all kinds of options. That's all I've got to say for today. Hopefully I remembered every point I wanted to make and it made sense and wasn't too confusing. If you've got questions or if I just confused the hell out of you, that's what the comment section's for. As far as I know, I always answer my comments. Sometimes YouTube doesn't notify content creators that they have a comment. I've seen this a few times, and I've gone back to a video to reference something after a year and see, oh, somebody commented 6 months ago and I never got the notification, and I'll answer them. So hopefully 6 months wasn't too late for that person. But in general, I usually answer them like the same day. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. If I said something that seems conflicting to you, it's possible I made a mistake, but I think I got everything right. I'm doing these videos to get more videos out. I'm doing them in a different format now. If you've noticed, I just stand here and yap for a while. And it's hard to do that just from memory, especially when you have a lot of specs, and especially when you're getting older. It's hard to remember everything. I've got a little sheet of notes here so I can remember what to say. I try not to pick up the sheet of notes and look at it while I'm talking, but it's there. I put a break in the video and I can go ahead and look at it. So hopefully this is useful to you. The next videos are probably going to be travel related. So when I started off with a little technical video, Die Hard battery pack, and I got this channel started, and a little clip from when I was camping. And over time, I tried to make it 50-50, but sometimes I'm not traveling, and other times, people like the technical stuff better than they do the travel stuff. There's lots of people. I mean, how many more people do you need to see going to the corner in Winslow, Arizona? I just saw another video today, and I thought everybody had done this or gone to Page, Arizona, or all the popular van spots where everyone's got to get a photo. I try to do something a little bit different, but I think some people want to see some of the travel. So what I'll do is when I go to a site camping up in Michigan or something that's less popular, I'll bring you to that place so you can find some other things that most people don't go to. When I go back to the East Coast, I always try to post on Instagram if I find something interesting, but I'll try to do a little more content on that in the future going forward. All right. Well, thanks for watching this far, and hopefully you got something out of this and I didn't bore the heck out of you.